Welcome to the Cecil Hurt Show. I'm your host, Chris Ratty. Plenty to talk about with practice officially underway. 2-a-days. We're going to talk football. We're going to talk sock puppets. Cecil in the studio.
Chris, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
Good.
How are you doing?
Enjoy your week off?
I did.
Good.
I did. Hilton Head Island. It was relaxing. Got some golf in.
Good.
Played a Jack Nicklaus course and a Robert Trent Jones course. Now back to reality.
There you go.
And the reality is practice underway, 2-a-days. Alabama football consumption for the readers, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
There's so much out there. And it was funny because every week I'll pose the question to the forum members, questions for Cecil.
Right.
And today we're shooting Cecil. So submit your questions. And Zachary said, "You're shooting Cecil. How is this legal?" And I was like, well, if and when we do. I'm
glad at least one poster spoke up.
And they did. So when we do go on our hunting trip we've been talking about for so long,
I understand.
and I accidentally,
Dick Cheney
it's
style.
yeah, then that's first degree. I'm labeled here. It's electronic.
Hey.
Before we start getting to the questions that from the readers, I've got this SEC crap.
Mm-hmm.
Can I call it crap, Cecil? I know you probably can't, because you're a well-known columnist, been around forever, but I don't care, Cecil.
Mm-hmm.
No one knows who I am, I'm the guy that I flip him the electronic bird earlier in the week, you know what I mean? But they're trying to rip out our livelihood. But discuss it a little bit before we move on. How do you feel about it overall?
Well, it's a lengthy policy. I'm not sure that they would like to say that what came out and what Jason Morton did a good job of reporting on last week is a final product. There may have been some suggestions or some guidelines. I'm sure it's what their media company would want. XO would, sure, it's all ours. Give it all to us.
Sure.
But I think there's got to be some give and take in the process, so we'll see.
Yeah, because they haven't officially announced it.
Right,
yet.
exactly.
Still,
Mike Slive and Charles Bloom are responsible people, and
Sure.
I think they understand that their needs on both sides. As written, some of it is absolutely no media company would stand still for, and the New York Times company won't. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in the final product. And see how it is on a day-to-day.
I think I'm hoping that it will be fair. It's funny. One of Jason Morton's paragraphs: a summary to be printed on the back of each ticket, likely starting next year with football, since tickets for this season have already been distributed, forbids fans from taking photographs or sharing accounts or descriptions of the event. I'm assuming he means via Twitter.
Well, that's the old baseball.
That's the
old baseball disclaimer that no representation of this event without the written consent of Major League Baseball.
Sure.
So,
but two guys at a bar can talk about the game.
Not
going to be zapped.
Good luck enforcing that. I
Sure.
mean, good luck telling some guy he can't bring his phone in when it's got a camera in it, and if something happens, he's going to zap it. I guess
Sure.
that keeps you from bringing in something that you can't hide on your program. We're just going to have to get Sean to dress a little bit looser. The big bulky sweater.
Yeah.
The big size 58 jeans. Move on through.
That's it. Funny. So we'll address it when it officially comes out. And until then, business as usual for us. We're shooting practice. We're shooting press conferences. We're going to do what we.
I think what the audience needs to know, what our readers and our online community needs to know is that we're going to do as much as we can to bring you as much good coverage as we can, and if anybody tries to restrict that, we're going to fight as hard as we can.
That's right. And if we do resort to our highlights in sock puppets, I'll let you be Julio Jones. How's that? You can be Julio.
The number 8.
All right. Capstone crazy, and this is a report came out yesterday, and unfortunate for Virginia Tech, but their leading rusher, Darren Evans, torn ACL, out for the season.
Yeah,
and Capstone crazy wants to know if the loss will have an impact on the opener.
Well, it certainly could. I mean, it's just like any team. They're going to be. There's a reason the guy's a starter. It's going to affect him. He was a tough, kind of a Glenn Coffey style runner. If you saw the Orange Bowl last year, I think he had 129 yards and 2 touchdowns. They've got backups. They've got a good backup. They got a freshman they're really high on. That's a tough environment for a freshman to step in. I think we remember, Clemson had some touted freshmen last year who struggled, but at the same time, Julio Jones played well in that game. And so, obviously, though, it's a blow to them, and hate to see injuries. I want to see each team at their best and let the best team win.
You mentioned on Feinbaum, and Capstone Crazy followed up with, you mentioned on Feinbaum this week that A.J. looked very good. Mm-hmm. Is there any chance he sees playing time this year, or do you think he will redshirt?
Okay, right now I'd say there's a chance. That doesn't mean that he will or won't redshirt. I think that's a decision the coaches have to make. They haven't scrimmaged yet. How's he going to be when they're in his face like this?
Sure.
Something that the coaches still have to see. So you can't make that determination yet. I just commented that his looks, his poise, his size, his arm strength. If you swapped jerseys 10 and 12 and said, there's the starting quarterback, you wouldn't have thought, that's way out of line. But Greg has a backstory. He's been here. He's learned the offense. He's run it through a spring. He's been in scrimmages. He's the starter. No question about that. But I think that AJ's upside is pretty good. I think that he's got a real chance. Whether that means that he's on the field against Virginia Tech at some point, that's a totally different question, sure. and one that hadn't been settled yet.
Sure. AHM 21, Cecil, he says, hi. How much will the success of this year's team will depend on the immediate impact of freshmen? Also, can you hook me up with a media pass to the Virginia Tech game? If you do this for him, he promises to BBT5 with Coach Saban in Atlanta. So he'll take care of business for us.
Well, we're going through the credential process now, so we'll see if we can have a designated 5 guy on the list. I'm sure the SEC would want the rights to any
to the 5. They'll never own the 5, Cecil.
I understand.
So how much will depend on the immediate
impact? I don't think depend is probably not the word that I would use, but it will be affected somewhat. I wrote a column last week where I was talking about freshman classes and that I thought Alabama's probably a year away. There's a paradox that when you get to be at the USC, Oklahoma, Florida level, LSU maybe at that level too in terms of top 5 recruiting classes every year, but you start getting those kind of recruiting classes that you don't have to have play right away. If you're a team that's in a rebuilding mode, and there's some in the SEC or wherever they are, and you get a top, and the way Alabama's been, certainly last year and to some extent this year, you got to play right away. Got to get 10 or 12 guys out there right away. This year, I don't think it'll be 10 or 12, but there'll be some who'll play. I would not be surprised to see one in the secondary who might even start. I think that there's a chance of a receiver making it into the rotation. Pretty sure that one of the freshman running backs will be in the rotation. So, and those will be some important players. And then, depth-wise, there's some other spots. Might not play. We were talking about one in A.J. McCarron. Yeah. Might not play, but might have to play. So you don't know how that effect will be. I think next year, even if Alabama has a number 1 or a top 5 recruiting class, I could see next year not really depending on a freshman playing. I mean, a freshman can't play. That doesn't mean don't come to Alabama, you won't get any playing time. It just means that they'll have good depth at every position. And a good freshman will play, but you won't be, to use his word, depending on them.
Sure. And I did say, speaking of freshmen, saw DJ Fluker run by us when we were at Media Day, jogged in the tunnel down, because we can't speak to them.
Right.
He's not a little boy.
No, he's a big man.
It's funny because you hear about, I haven't seen a lot of them in person as you guys do on a regular basis, so this was a good day for all the players to come out and kind of stand side by side. And there was another guy, freshman, that we saw walk down. Sean got the team photo with them walking in, and there was one guy that walked in, and he looked freakish. And I said, who is that? And he was wearing number 2. I'm like, that's not Kareem Jackson. Who is that? And it was Trent Richardson. I mean, without the pads on, and his arms were jutting out, just looked like a boulder. Kind of walking down. So they got some big fellas.
They got some thick young men. They do.
I think they're going to be and Sean has mentioned that too, watching them during practice. It seems like they're just hitting a lot harder than they have. And Sinceri has been a guy, I think, instilling some of that early on.
Sure. Then they want to be physical, and now's the time to do it when you're still 3 weeks out from a game.
And I wonder if swearing like a sailor helps at all, because Sinceri has made our job a little bit difficult in the editing department. That's all I'm going to say. I
understand. And I don't. It's funny. I don't think those guys probably after one day it gets filtered pretty well.
Sure.
So I think that's just a way to keep the intensity up.
Par for the course. Bama Tusks, any news on the fishing trip suspensions?
That's something that's been out there. I don't think there's any news on it. I don't think that it's something that's been established one way or the other right now. I think everybody on the Alabama roster will be good to go for Virginia Tech. If that changes in the next 3 weeks, we'll report on it.
Okay. Stu Bone, this is an interesting question. It seems to me that Steve Spurrier hasn't been himself lately. After his wimpy, he calls it wimpy speech about Tebow Votegate, a mediocre record at South Carolina, and the rise of Urban Meyer at Steve's old stomping grounds, has the world of college football passed by the old ball coach?
That's an interesting question. We'll see. I'll be interested to see. They open the season. They're the Thursday nighter. I think South Carolina and North Carolina State is the Thursday nighter on the 3rd, and so it'd be interesting to see how they play, how they look. When I talked to him in Destin, he was pretty upbeat about how his team was going to play. I think quarterback situation still frustrates him, but he's got good players. He's got his players in there. They've got one of the really exciting freshmen in the country coming in Stephen Gilmore. So, winning takes care of all that. If he starts winning, he'll have a swagger. I think another 6-6 year, and I don't know how much longer he'd want to keep at it.
And I don't know how wimpy your speech can be when you've got to talk about just a blatant overlook and mistake.
Yeah,
it's
it
like,
was.
What are you going to do?
It was probably embarrassing for him.
Yeah.
I think doubly so because he's a Florida alum.
Sure.
So I didn't think it was his finest hour, but as I've said before, I didn't think it was the biggest issue in the world either. I thought it got kind of overblown.
Sure. Teague, do you think we'll see a little more passing this year due to the different skill set of the new offensive line?
I don't know. Obviously, some of that depends on how games go. If you get the lead and they're trying to run some clock, you don't pass very much. You don't take those chances. I think that in year 2, I'll put it this way, I think that in year 2 with Jim McElwain at the offensive coordinator, they'll do more things than they did in year 1. Now, exactly how that'll manifest itself kind of depends on every Saturday.
I mean, they're set up for the smash mouth stable of backs now with Colin Peake complementing at the 2 tight end set to just run and then play action all day and then go deep. Of course they're going to pass.
You want to have that in your package. One thing, and that's a good question. I'm not disparaging the question, but one thing, you don't know what Virginia Tech's going to do. Sometimes the opposing defense dictates that
put 8 in the box.
Right, they put 8 in the box, or they put 8 defensive backs out there and 3 guys up front, and you're going to run all day. They switch around. They put 8-9 guys in the box. You're going to have to throw vertically to take advantage of that. So. Yeah, and amazingly enough, some teams adjust and trick things up and are very sophisticated, and some teams just do what they're going to do. They're going to put 8 in the box, and they're going to keep. You show you can run on them, or you hit them deep twice, and they keep 8 in the box.
Sure.
So. Drifter,
why can't we sit on the shady side at Fan Day?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Is that just so Coach Saban can won't let you see too much?
I don't know the answer to that question because I don't know who stopped them. I don't know.
It's just like
if that first guy over there just stood up and said, "By gosh, I'm going to the shady side." Maybe no leadership.
No leadership. Lack of leadership in the fandom.
It could be.
We did answer the question for Drifter. Do you have a Jimmy John's update he wants to know as well, Drifter? Anything?
I don't. That gets into the. I just hadn't talked to the people who cover the courts for us. I've heard some scuttlebutt, but I don't want to say because it's a legal situation. And I don't want to say something that's then incorrect. I think that's either been resolved or nearing a resolution. I think that he's sort of agreed to what his plea is going to be, and whether there's been any kind of sentencing or anything like that, I don't know.
No huddle. We'll wrap it up with a no huddle, talking about Ezekiel Knight.
Mm-hmm.
If Zeke was not cleared to play for Alabama, how can he be cleared to play for Stillman?
Well, first of all, different. You can get 1 medical opinion, 2 medical opinions, 47 medical opinions. Alabama has a medical staff, and they have to take the advice or be well advised to accept the counsel of that medical staff. If the doctor says he can't go, he can't go. You might find a doctor who says he can go. You might find a doctor who says we're going to try this treatment or this drug, and we don't think it's going to be a life-threatening situation for him. So, if Stillman's comfortable, if Stillman's medical personnel are comfortable, then it's up to Zeke to decide if he wants to take that risk. Alabama wasn't the only. Zeke's kind of bounced from Alabama to Texas Southern and different places, and he's got a lot of people who say that they don't think that he should be playing, but there may be doctors, and they may be right, who say, we think that this is a manageable healthcare situation, and we can put him out there.
Great. Have you been watching any baseball lately, Cecil?
Just a little. It gets, we get wrapped up in football.
Got a little race heating up in the East. Well, not just the East, but the entire American League.
I know the Yankees.
More so than
Yankees have been on a tear since the All-Star.
They have been. They took care of business
Yankees,
against the Red Sox last week, and
did.
I think we had 26 some odd scoreless innings.
I did see some of the beanball.
I would not want to be a pitcher with Kevin Youkilis running at me like that.
Yeah, and throwing the helmet.
And throwing the helmet.
Is that within the protocol?
I don't know.
Pitcher doesn't have a helmet.
He doesn't have a helmet. It was definitely bad form, but it was hilarious because when does a pitcher actually reach? I mean, when does someone who's been beaned reach the pitcher? Because generally they don't. When they start charging, they get tackled. Right. But he ran straight at him, and the pitcher was running away, and then his no infielders helped him. They said, "I don't know what to do with this maniac that's running at you right now. So good luck with it."
I like a pitcher like Randy Myers. Just wait on the mound for him,
and then pop. It's all about the timing because they're all out of it right now. You just wait, smack.
Right, and I might not. If I've got the helmet and he doesn't, I might want to keep the helmet. That might be
just use
close quarter
weapon.
It was
like when Varitek and
why give it to him?
Yeah, it was like when Varitek and A-Rod went at it back in 2004. Tech never took his stuff off. He's like, why would I? Eat my glove and let's brawl. You know what I mean? All right, well, so we'll see how it goes.
The interesting one would have been if Prince Fielder had gotten into the Dodger clubhouse.
He was angry.
Started wreaking havoc in there.
He's not a small guy either.
Oh, man, he's full size.
He is full size. All right, man. Well, thanks again, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay. Look forward to it.